And here I'm going to show you a bit about the lab-kie-services and lab-test-harness folders. So I'll start by showing you the stateless decision service. It's an interface we implemented in our local decision service. Though you should know this is the main structure of a key session, or key being KIE, which is knowledge with everything. Our query utils is a folder that manages the queries that we do as we go through our stateless decision service, and the local stateless decision service is our implementation of it. Again, KIE, we have a commands, container, base, and runtime logger. These are all various data structures that help us manage the overall organization of the key base. It's pretty buzzword heavy, though luckily for you, you won't be editing most of the code in these three Java classes. They're more there just to make sure that everything else runs the way we expect it to, with our rules and our cucumber scenarios that we use to test them. Though definitely look into that if you want to do some business automation. It's interesting stuff, how it all works together. Next I'll show you the cucumber files. So we have a feature file called lab.feature, which it's going to look something like the rules, because they have a given when-then format, similar to the rules when-then format. Though you should know that this is supposed to be in a business language kind of structure, so a client who knows nothing about how to code should be able to see this and understand that, okay, so we have a scenario. For example, we're trying to allow a band to play an open time slot. Given that we have a certain venue that has a certain occupancy, and they allow certain types of performances, here a band and orchestra, and an existing band performance by the Clash from this time to this time, and a data request from a different orchestra for this time. When validating the booking, they should know that these two will not be overlapping, because one ends at 2, one starts at 2, and then we should then be able to confirm. Or given if they do overlap, like in the scenario above it, then it'll be revoked. Or say you're trying to get an orchestra in when they only accept bands and comics, we basically have a layout for which ones will be confirmed, which ones will be revoked, and rather than it being in code and like more technical language, it is more plainly written. All these AND methods are essentially given methods as well. So you'll see in a moment when I go over the booking validation steps how they are the names of the methods that we go into. So you can see our first one is given a venue with an occupancy of a certain set of regular expressions, which basically we'll be putting in the string venue name and the string occupancy as these variables we get to then send into our request. The next one, given an existing performance by this band from this place to this place, we have the parameters of the method then be filled with those values, and we set them all in our various objects, and we set our objects into our booking. And then booking, we put out save booking is the last part of that. So here you can kind of, as you scroll down, you get used to these various given methods. They're all loading in the objects that we laid out in the feature file, essentially. And data request for performance. Data request being one that was older, that wasn't yet processed, because sometimes people apply for things when your business is closed, you know? So here we have our then, which is essentially I just minimized it. Yeah, here we have our then, which is essentially how we're going to be running the rules. We set up the booking status, and we have an assert method here that then is going to be checking on to what was set originally. Like the string booking status is being loaded in from the scenario file we have, right? Then the booking should be confirmed or revoked. And we compare it to what ended up showing as a result from the when, which here we have our when, which basically, using the build session method directly below, we load in the booking that we have as facts with venues and bookings and requests, and then with the response we send them to our decision service, right? Remember I said that's the main engine that runs our rules, and we have it processed, given the facts, given the process ID of the business process mentioned in the knowledge video, and the booking response.class object, we then send and receive a information based on whether or not the bookings will line up given the set dates and the set performance venues and the set functionality that we have available. It's a big mouthful. So I hope this makes some sense. Moving on to the run Qux test file. This is what we use to run the actual scenario. This is like the test file that you're going to run with. Basically, it tells it to run all the feature files in the features directory, have a pretty output, send it to an HTML, which we can then open in a browser, and to ignore ones that have an @ignore and have a not implemented tag. The glue, com.rhc, is merely the package name of the DRL files, the feature files and DRL files that we'll be using to run these various tests. Run tags is the same thing, just you should know that we also have the @WIP tag, which does not have a tilde, which means that we do run scenarios with WIP. In fact, we only run scenarios with WIP. So the run tags test files, basically we can put an @WIP in front of one scenario. And then if we run just the run tags file, we will only run this one scenario. So if you just want to test a specific rule, maybe you just tweaked something, so you want to run that one without having to run everything all over again. So you put in that @WIP, you'd go to runtags.java, right-click, and say run as run JUnit test, which would run just that one file, or that one scenario within that one file, as opposed to all the scenarios. Because definitely when you reach a certain scale, these end up taking a long time to implement them all, and to run them all and test them all. So one at a time is usually the way to go. And yeah, so that's most of what's in the lab-kie services. I'm going to hop over to the lab test harness folder now. And here we have in the repository, these are mentioned in another video, but these are the files that we use to access the booking.daos and store them temporarily in our own repository to be able to access the features of them after bringing them in from our Mongo database. But there is a lab Cucumber repository and a venue Cucumber repository, but they all have similar functionality. Just wanted to touch on that. More importantly, I wanted to show you the application context Cucumber and test repositories XMLs. They show how we're connecting to Mongo, right here, right? It's important to know how these things are wired together. Definitely if you do integration on projects, which I'm sure you'll at least have to touch on, it's important to know where to look to see where things are being wired together. And here we load in our decision service as a bean, for example. Without this here, it wouldn't even know where the file is and wouldn't be able to attach it to our KBase and our key container. And lastly, we have the properties file, which gets loaded into our various contexts with the way we're logging everything. So this is going to be how the information is displayed on the server. Yeah, the nitty-gritty of it all.